The Grandview Hotel ballroom sparkled under hundreds of pendant lights, each table adorned with white roses and gold-trimmed china. 200 guests filled the space. 3 decades worth of friendships, business relationships and family connections all gathered to celebrate Thomas and Linda Hayes' 30th wedding anniversary. I sat at the family table in a simple black dress from an outlet mall, nursing a glass of water while everyone else drank champagne. My older sister Victoria sat across from me in Chanel, her diamond bracelet catching the light every time she moved. Her husband Kenneth was beside her, already on his 3rd scotch, laughing loudly at Dad's jokes. Mom held court at the center of the table, elegant in champagne silk, her hair perfectly styled. Dad sat beside her in his best suit, beaming with pride as person after person approached to congratulate them on 30 years of marriage and successful careers. Thomas Hayes had built Hayes Manufacturing from nothing into a mid-sized industrial equipment company with annual revenue around $40 million. He was proud of that. He mentioned it in every conversation, every toast, every introduction. Self-made man. Built it from scratch. The American dream. And then there was me, Skylar Hayes, the daughter who couldn't hold down a job. "So, Skylar," my Aunt Carol said from down the table, her voice carrying that false sweetness that meant something cruel was coming. "What are you doing these days?" "Still figuring things out." I smiled politely. "I'm working. Keeping busy." "Working where?" She leaned forward, genuinely curious or genuinely cruel. With Aunt Carol it was hard to tell. "Last I heard you were at that marketing agency. Or was it the consulting firm?" "That was 2 years ago," Victoria interjected helpfully. "She's had at least 3 jobs since then. Maybe 4? I lose track." 6 actually, Kenneth added, swirling his scotch. "I keep a list. It's impressive in its own way. Most people can't fail that many times in such a short period." The table laughed. Polite, uncomfortable laughter that acknowledged the joke while pretending to disapprove of its cruelty. "Now Kenneth," Mom said weakly, but she was smiling. "Skylar is just exploring her options." "For 3 years," Victoria said. "At 32 years old. Most people explore their options in their 20s. By your 30s, you're supposed to have actually chosen something." "Some people are late bloomers," Dad said, but his tone suggested he didn't actually believe I'd bloom at all. "Skylar's always been different. Less driven than Victoria. Less focused. Less successful." That was the word he didn't say but everyone heard. "I just think it's important to find the right fit," I said quietly. "The right fit," Victoria repeated mockingly. "Skylar, you've tried marketing, consulting, sales, project management, operations, and what was the last one?" "Some startup that went under in 6 months." "It didn't go under," I corrected. "It was acquired." "Same difference," Kenneth said. "Point is, you're 32 with no career trajectory, no savings, no property, nothing to show for over a decade in the workforce. Unlike Victoria," Aunt Carol added, "who made partner at her law firm at 30. Youngest in the firm's history." Victoria smiled modestly, but her eyes were sharp with triumph. He loved these moments. Loved being compared to me. Loved winning. "Victoria's always been exceptional," Dad agreed. "Top of her class at Harvard Law. Made partner in record time. Married a successful surgeon." He nodded at Kenneth. "Built a life we can be proud of." The implication was clear. Victoria was a life they could be proud of. I was not. More family members drifted over, drawn by the conversation. My cousin David, my uncle Robert, several of Dad's business partners and their families. All of them settling in to watch the familiar drama of the Hayes family's disappointing younger daughter. "So what is it this time?" Uncle Robert asked. "What job are you doing now, Skylar?" "I'm in corporate management," I said simply. Victoria laughed, a sharp sound like breaking glass. "Corporate management. That's vague. What does that even mean?" "I manage corporate operations and strategy," I said. "For what company?" Dad asked, and I could hear the skepticism in his voice. "Another startup that'll fold in 6 months?" "I've been with the same company for 5 years actually," I said. The table went quiet. Victoria's smile faltered slightly. 5 years. Mom said, hope flickering in her voice. "Skylar, why didn't you tell us?" "That's wonderful. What company?" "You never asked," I said simply. "But yes, 5 years. Same position the entire time." Same position, Kenneth repeated. So no promotions? No advancement? You've been stuck in the same role for 5 years. The role has evolved, I said. But yes, same title. Same company. What's the title? Victoria demanded, her lawyer instincts sensing something off about this conversation. So, I said calmly. The silence that followed was absolute. So, Dad repeated slowly. You're claiming you're a CEO? Not claiming. I am the CEO. Have been for 5 years. CEO of what? Victoria's voice had taken on that sharp edge she used in courtrooms. Some tiny startup? A 3-person operation running out of a garage. Something like that, I said. Though we're out of the garage now. Outgrew it around year 2. Kenneth laughed. So you run a small business. That's cute, Skylar. But let's be honest, calling yourself a CEO of a 10-person company is a bit pretentious. We're slightly larger than 10 people, I said. How many employees? Uncle Robert asked, his business mind engaging despite his skepticism. 4,236 as of last Friday, I said. Though we're hiring. Should be over 4,500 by end of quarter. The silence returned, heavier this time. 4,000 employees, Dad said flatly. You're telling me you run a company with 4,000 employees. I'm telling you I run a company that employs 4,000 people across 11 countries, I corrected. The number matters less than what we do. What do you do? Aunt Carol asked. We're an industrial holding company, I said. We acquire manufacturing firms, modernize their operations, improve efficiency and scale them globally. We specialize in traditional manufacturing sectors that are struggling with digital transformation. Victoria was pulling out her phone, typing frantically. What's the company name? Nextcore Industries, I said. I watched her face as she found it. Watched the color drain from her cheeks. Watched her eyes widen as she scrolled through the search results. This can't be right, she whispered. What? Kenneth grabbed her phone. His reaction was even more dramatic. Holy shit. Kenneth. Mom said sharply. Language. Nextcore Industries, he read from the phone, his voice stunned. Annual revenue, $2.7 billion. Operates in 11 countries. Portfolio of 43 manufacturing companies. Founded 5 years ago by Skylar Hayes. He looked up at me. This is you. That's me, I confirmed. You own a $3 billion company, Victoria's voice cracked. The company is valued at $3.2 billion as of our last valuation, I corrected. Though that's somewhat arbitrary until we go public, which we're planning for next year. Revenue is $2.7 billion annually. We're on track to hit $3 billion this year. Dad had gone completely pale. Skylar, this can't be real. It's very real, I said. I pulled out my phone and opened my email, then passed it down the table. That's the quarterly board meeting agenda from last week. I chair the board. Dad took my phone with shaking hands. Mom leaned over to read with him. I watched their faces as they scrolled through executive summaries, financial projections, acquisition targets. You acquired Hayes Manufacturing, Dad whispered. Last month, I confirmed. Though you would have known that if you'd actually looked at the acquisition paperwork. The buyer was listed as Nextcore Industries. I'm surprised your attorney didn't mention it. He did, Dad said faintly. He said Nextcore was a solid company. Good reputation. Fair offer. He recommended accepting. It was a fair offer, I agreed. $42 million. 15% above market value. Very generous terms for the transition period. You bought Dad's company, Victoria said, still unable to process it. The one who can't keep a job. I kept my job just fine, I said. I've been CEO of Nextcore for 5 years. Started it with money from Grandma Hayes' trust fund. The $2 million she left me that everyone said I'd waste. You turned $2 million into a $3 billion company? Uncle Robert's business mind was fully engaged now, skepticism replaced by genuine interest. Not immediately, I said. First acquisition was a struggling machine shop in Pennsylvania. Paid $800,000 for it. Spent 4 months living there learning every aspect of the operation. Then I modernized their systems, brought in new management, secured better supplier contracts. Within a year revenue had tripled. You lived in Pennsylvania? Mom asked. When you told us you were traveling for work? I was traveling for work, I said. I lived in or near every company we acquired for the first 3 years. I needed to understand manufacturing from the ground up. Can't run 43 manufacturing companies if you don't understand how manufacturing actually works. The job changes, Dad said slowly, realization dawning. Every time we thought you'd switch jobs. I'd acquired a new company, I finished. I wasn't job hopping. I was building a portfolio. But you never asked for details. You just assumed I was failing. Victoria had recovered enough to go into lawyer mode. The acquisitions listed here, Jensen Tool and Die, Morrison Industrial, Blackstone Manufacturing, these are all established companies. Some of them have been around for decades. 70 years for Jensen, I agreed. Most of our targets are legacy manufacturing firms facing generational transitions or digital transformation challenges. We buy them, modernize them, and scale them. It's a good business model. A $3 billion business model, Kenneth said, still staring at Victoria's phone. Closer to $4 billion now, I said. The valuation's a bit outdated. We've had a strong year. Dad was scrolling through my emails, his face going through a series of expressions. Shock, confusion, something that might have been awe. You have a meeting scheduled with the Commerce Secretary next month. About manufacturing policy, I confirmed. Nexcore employs a lot of people in industries affected by trade policy. We have input to offer. You're meeting with cabinet members, he whispered. Occasionally. Goes with the territory when you run a company our size. Hayes Manufacturing is listed here, he continued reading. Under recent acquisitions. It says you plan to invest $12 million in modernization and expand the workforce by 40%. That's correct, I said. Your company has good bones, Dad. Solid customer relationships, quality products, loyal workforce. But the equipment is outdated, the supply chain is inefficient, and you're not leveraging modern manufacturing technologies. We can fix that. You're going to fix my company, he said. It's not your company anymore, I said gently. You sold it to Nexcore. But yes, we're going to modernize it. That's what we do. Dad, you're going to stay on as a consultant for 2 years at $400,000 annually. It's in the contract you signed. You'll help with the transition, introduce us to key clients, provide institutional knowledge. It's a good deal. $400,000 a year, Mom breathed. For consulting? It's market rate for someone with Dad's expertise, I said. Actually, it's slightly above market rate. But I wanted to be generous. Generous, Dad repeated numbly. Victoria had found something else on her phone. It says here you were named one of Fortune's 40 under 40 business leaders last year. Yes, that was nice, I said. Nice, she repeated. You made a Fortune list and you called it nice. What should I call it? I asked. It's good for business. Raises our profile. Helps with recruitment and partnership deals. But it's just a list. Just a list, Kenneth laughed, a slightly hysterical edge to it. Most people would frame that. Put it on their wall. Tell everyone they meet. I don't have walls in my office, I said. Open floor plan. Fosters collaboration. Aunt Carol had been silent through all of this, but now she spoke up. Skylar, you've been a billionaire this entire time while we all thought you were struggling? I'm not a billionaire, I corrected. I own about 70% of Nexcore, which would put my paper worth around $2.2 billion. But that's mostly illiquid equity. My actual net worth in accessible assets is closer to $200 million. Only $200 million, Uncle Robert said dryly. It's enough, I said with a shrug. Why? Mom's voice broke. Why didn't you tell us? Why let us think you were failing? I looked at her for a long moment. As I tried to tell you, Mom. 5 years ago when I started Nexcore. I told you I was starting an industrial holding company. Remember what you said? She closed her eyes. You said I was wasting Grandma's money on a foolish scheme, I continued. Dad said I should invest in a franchise instead. Something proven. Something safe. Victoria said I'd be bankrupt within a year. We were trying to protect you, Dad said weakly. You were trying to control me, I corrected. And when I didn't follow your advice, you decided I'd failed. Every acquisition, every company I lived in, every late night and early morning I spent learning manufacturing. You saw it all as job hopping. As failure. We didn't know, Victoria said. You didn't ask, I replied. You didn't want to know. It was easier to have the disappointing daughter narrative. Easier to compare me to perfect Victoria. Easier to feel superior. The words landed like physical blows. That's not fair, Victoria protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? I asked. Every family gathering for 5 years, you've made jokes about my job hopping. You've pitted me, mocked me, used me as an example of what not to do. And I let you because correcting you would have meant bragging, and that's not who I am. But you're a billionaire, Kenneth said, still stuck on that fact. The company is valued in the billions, I said again. I'm just someone who built a business that turned out to be successful. The number doesn't change who I am. Dad found something else in my emails. You have an offer here from Goldman Sachs. They want to take Nextcore public. They're estimating a $12 billion valuation. 14 if we wait until next year, I said. But yes, we're planning an IPO. It makes sense for the business at this stage. 14 billion, he repeated. Though again, that's a valuation, not cash, I said. Market valuations are somewhat arbitrary. What matters more is that Nextcore will have additional capital to acquire more companies, which means saving more manufacturing jobs and bringing more facilities into the 21st century. You're saving jobs, Uncle Robert said. The acquisitions you're making, companies like Hayes Manufacturing, most of them would probably shut down without intervention. Many would, I agreed. The manufacturing sector is going through a generational transition. Founders are retiring, next generations don't want to take over, private equity firms buy and strip for parts. We offer a different model. We buy, we modernize, we grow. Everyone benefits. The selling owners get fair value, employees keep their jobs and often see better wages, and we build a sustainable business. That's actually noble, he said, sounding surprised. It's good business, I corrected. Noble is irrelevant. But yes, there are positive externalities. I'm proud of the work we do. Victoria had moved past shock into what looked like anger. All these years. All these family dinners where we pitted you. Where Dad talked about setting you up with real jobs. Where Kenneth and I bought you gift cards to help with your finances. And you were a billionaire. I never asked for pity, I said. Never asked for help. Never complained about my situation. You all decided I needed saving and then patted yourselves on the back for trying to save me. The gift cards, Kenneth said suddenly. The Visa gift cards we gave you every Christmas. $500 each year to help out. I donated them to manufacturing worker relief funds, I said. Seemed appropriate. He actually laughed at that. Of course you did. This is insane, Victoria said, standing abruptly. This whole thing is insane. You made fools of us. No, I said calmly, staying seated. You made assumptions. I just didn't correct them. That's the same thing. It's really not, I said. I never lied. I never pretended to be poor. I told you I worked in corporate management. I told you I was busy with work. I told you I traveled frequently. All true. You filled in the gaps with your own narrative. A narrative you encouraged by not correcting it, she snapped. Why should I have corrected it? I asked. So you could change how you treated me? So instead of pitying poor Skylar, you could claim credit for successful Skylar? So you could tell your friends about your impressive sister instead of your embarrassing one. That's not, she started. That's exactly what would have happened, I interrupted. And frankly, I prefer the version of you who thought I was struggling. At least that version was honest. Now I'll have to watch you all rewrite history. We always knew Skylar was special. We always supported her dreams. We're so proud of her success. The accuracy of the prediction hung in the air. Dad set down my phone carefully. Skylar, I owe you an apology. A massive apology. For 5 years I've been treating you like a failure. Making jokes at your expense. Pitying you. And you've been building an empire I can't even comprehend. Apology noted, I said. Can you forgive me? He asked. I considered the question. I don't know, Dad. Can you actually change? Can you stop measuring people's worth by traditional success markers? Can you see value in paths that don't look like yours? I can try, he said. Maybe that's enough, I said. Maybe. Hayes Manufacturing, he said suddenly. When you bought it, you could have shut it down. Stripped it for parts like you said private equity does. Made a quick profit. I could have, I agreed. Would have been profitable short term. But that's not what Nextcore does. We build. We don't destroy. The 12 million you're investing, he continued. The workforce expansion. That's real. Very real. We're installing new CNC machines, upgrading the IT infrastructure, bringing in lean manufacturing consultants. Your company will be more efficient, more competitive, more profitable. And yes, we're hiring. 40% workforce increase over 3 years. You're going to save my company, he said, and his voice cracked. It's not your company anymore, I reminded him gently. But yes, we're going to make it thrive. That's what we do. Mom had been quiet through most of this, but now she spoke. 30 years. 30 years of marriage. And on our anniversary we find out our daughter is more successful than we ever imagined. More successful than all of us combined. Success isn't a competition, I said. Isn't it? She asked. Victoria's a partner at a prestigious law firm. Your father built a $40 million company. I've been a successful consultant for 20 years. We thought we were doing well. We thought we'd achieved something. You have achieved something, I said. You've built good careers. You've provided for your family. You've created value in your industries. Those are real accomplishments. But you built a billion-dollar empire, Victoria said. 3 billion, Kenneth corrected. I built a company that happened to become valuable, I said. But the value isn't the achievement. The achievement is the 4,000 people who have jobs. The 43 companies that would have closed but are now thriving. The manufacturing sector we're helping modernize. That's what matters. You really believe that, Uncle Robert observed. I really do, I confirmed. The money is just a byproduct. A useful one. It lets me acquire more companies, save more jobs, do more work. But it's not the point. What is the point? Dad asked. Building something that matters, I said simply. Creating value that lasts beyond quarterly earnings. Helping industries adapt instead of die. It's not complicated. My phone buzzed. A text from my CFO. Board meeting moved to Tuesday. Also, the Commerce Secretary's office confirmed for next month. And congratulations, you're officially on the Forbes billionaire list as of today. They're running the story tomorrow. I typed back, thanks. See you Tuesday. When I looked up, everyone was watching me. Forbes? Victoria asked, having seen me type. Just business, I said. The Forbes billionaire list, Kenneth said, having somehow read over my shoulder. That's not just business. That's international recognition. It's a list, I said. A well-known list that will be good for Nextcore's profile. But still just a list. Most people would celebrate making the Forbes billionaire list, Aunt Carol said. I'll celebrate by closing the Portland acquisition next week, I said. That's worth celebrating, saving 300 manufacturing jobs. Dad laughed, a sound that was half wonder, half disbelief. You're extraordinary, Skylar. Completely extraordinary. And I've been too blind to see it. You've been seeing what you wanted to see, I said. What fit your narrative? What made sense in your worldview? I understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. Can we start over? Mom asked. Really start over. Get to know you. The real you. Not the struggling daughter we invented, but the woman who built this remarkable company. I looked around the table. At my parents' hopeful faces. At Victoria's mix of awe and resentment. At Kenneth's amazement. At my extended family's shock. I don't know, I said honestly. Starting over sounds nice. But it requires you to genuinely change how you think about success, about worth, about what matters. And I'm not sure you can do that. Let us try, Dad said. Maybe, I said. But not tonight. Tonight is your anniversary. 30 years of marriage. That deserves to be celebrated without my business overshadowing it. I think that ship has sailed, Mom said with a weak laugh. Probably, I agreed. But we can try. Tell me about your favorite memory from the last 30 years. Something that has nothing to do with business or success or money. Just you two being married. They looked at each other, and for the first time that evening, I saw genuine emotion instead of performance. Mom reached for Dad's hand. Our first apartment, Dad said softly. 600 square feet. Barely any furniture. But it was ours. We were so poor, Mom added. But so happy. That's worth celebrating, I said. That's what tonight should be about. Not my company. Not your company. Just 30 years of building a life together. You're right, Dad said. You're absolutely right. The rest of the evening was quieter. My family still looked at me differently, with awe, with confusion, with recalculation of everything they thought they knew. But at least they tried to focus on the anniversary. As the party wound down, Victoria pulled me aside. I've been terrible to you, she said bluntly. For years. I used you to make myself feel better. To feel superior. And you were building something I can't even comprehend. Yes, I agreed. I don't expect forgiveness, she continued. But I want you to know I see it now. I see what you did. And it's remarkable. Thank you, I said. Can we talk, she asked. Really talk? About your business, your life, everything I missed. Maybe, I said. When you're ready to listen without comparing. Without competing. Without measuring my success against yours. I can try, she said. Then maybe we can talk, I agreed. When I left that night, my phone was already flooding with messages. Forbes had apparently leaked the billionaire list early. My PR team was fielding media requests. My board wanted an emergency meeting to discuss the publicity. But all I could think about was my family's faces. The recalculation. The sudden shift from pity to awe. I wondered if they'd ever really see me. Or if they'd just adjust their narrative, turning me from struggling daughter to billionaire Sue, without ever understanding the person in between. Only time would tell. But either way, I had work to do. Companies to acquire. Jobs to save. An empire to build. With or without their approval.